I have walked out on a pool deck and been like,
boy.
excuse me. And it didn't go over very well, so I didn't do that again.
No, I'd love to have seen that.
Excuse me.
Welcome to Fit2B Radio. Slip on your minimal sneakers, notch your headphones into your ears, tuck your smartphone into your pocket, and take us along for a walk while we talk. Or just grab a cup of your favorite drink and get on the floor and stretch a bit while we bring you all things fitness, core, and diastases recti related.
You guys ready?
Yes.
Yep. All right.
Born ready.
Born ready. I love that.
I love your first one though, when you're like, I wish I could just say all those things.
I know.
That is so bad.
Hey everybody, welcome to Fit2B Radio. My name is Chris Spanky. I'm the host today. I'm also the co-founder of Fit2B Studio. I'm here with Beth. She's the CEO of Fit2B Studio. She's also the founder and an all-around fitness expert in many ways. We have a very cool guest today. I'm excited to talk to her. Her name is Brianna Battles. Thank you, Brianna, for spending some time with us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Awesome. So if you're watching this podcast, because we have a video version, then you can tell already that Brianna's not in an office. She's in a different environment. If you're listening, you don't know what I'm talking about. Brianna, where are you right now?
I'm in my car parked outside of a hair salon because I actually have childcare for the morning. And this was like my only shot at having like guaranteed silence. If I was home, I would not have guaranteed silence. So like a car is better than my home at this point in life,
Yes.
I think.
And why would you not have guaranteed silence?
Oh, because I have a 4-year-old and I have an 8-month-old, and my house is the noisiest place ever.
Yeah.
Yes.
Beth and I don't know what that's like at all. Our houses are
Right.
My kids are at school right now. There's a reason we schedule these while they're at school. Yeah.
I
Because
know.
even though they're older, they're still noisy. And you have 2 boys, and you also have a couple of dogs, and life is full.
Life is very full, Beth.
In a good way.
That's good. Actually,
Absolutely.
you sound good. The car is a good recording environment. Like it's all closed in and quiet.
You know, I'd much rather have this be my office than my actual out in the open office that I have at home. So this works.
Yeah, good. And where is the car parked in the world?
Right now in Thousand Oaks, California.
Okay. So that's where you live. Okay.
Yeah.
And how long have you been in California?
My whole life.
Yeah.
California native.
And you have no plans
California
to leave.
native. You know, as much as my husband would like to, I feel like we are pretty rooted here, but we'll see. I don't know. There is a certain desire to see like life outside of expensive California. Yeah. But at the same time, there's a lot of benefits to living here too. So we'll see. We'll see what life throws at us down the line. So.
Yeah, it's so I'm up north of you in rural Southwest Washington where things are green, and everybody's excited here because it hit 70 degrees yesterday finally for the first time since October.
Oh, that's cold. I mean, I know it's not cold, but like assuming that that's the warmest it's been since October means it's very cold.
Yeah,
it's been
cold for us California people. So
it is.
This has been a mild winter. This has been mild.
Yeah, very mild winter for us.
That's good. Yeah, you're pretty spoiled down there, California.
I know.
Nice.
I know it.
So much sunshine. Well, I'm excited to have you on. Beyond excited. We also interviewed Michelle Lyons for the podcast today, and that'll go live the episode before yours. And I was telling her how, my friends, they fangirl over these American Idol type people. And me, I'm like the nerd. I am fangirling over people like you and Michelle. Like, I want to put posters of you guys up on my wall doing your thing. It's just so awesome. All these amazingly strong, brilliant women that are out in the world affecting change among female athletes and moms. It's just incredible. And I'm excited to talk to you about your births and your work with CrossFit athletes.
Thanks. Well, I'm super excited. Like, I don't know, Beth, I don't know if you hear this enough, but if you don't, I want you to know that I'm so grateful to join into a community where women like you and all the people basically that have come before me doing this work before I even knew it was like an option within my like career and passion. You guys have paved the way and done a great job being in it for a long time and evolving as this messaging and effort has evolved. So it's pretty cool to join you in this effort.
Well, it's awesome to have you joining us, and we're not just pawing all over each other right here, but this is huge because what Brianna does, for those of you listening, is something that is desperately needed and didn't exist, at least in my circle and on my radar. And so she is filling a hole among women who are having a lot of trouble and are incredibly misled.
Yes.
So it's
very
valuable.
And Beth tells me you're doing work in the CrossFit industry. Is that or CrossFit community? Am I getting that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I work with a lot of CrossFitters, but I'd say like more of the, I guess, athletic-minded, athletic goal community. Like I really have narrowed my scope to working with athletes, especially online. In my local community, I work with everybody, but a huge part of my, I guess, overall coaching philosophy is like a top-down effort. Like if I can work with a really high-level athlete, somebody who's paid to perform, then hopefully I can apply that skill set and that approach to any woman that I meet and interact with, whether it's online and those resources or, you know, in my garage doing a consult. So it's been pretty cool to narrow the scope to working with athletes and know that it does transfer to so many different women of so many different goals and abilities.
Wait, you have to tell people. Let's see. Tell them about your most recent garage workout. Okay, I follow you on Instagram, so tell them how they can follow you on Instagram. Tell them that, but also tell them what your most recent workout was.
Okay. Man, you put me on the spot. It's like asking me what I ate for dinner last night, where I can't remember. So first, my Instagram is Brianna.battles. It's BRIANNA .battles, BATTLES, and that is actually my real name.
Chris is going to follow you right now.
Let's see.
So, okay, I guess yesterday I had really minimal time because I don't even remember, but it was like, baby Chance started swim lessons. So that is during my workout time. So I have to be really efficient and rush things. So I did 4 rounds of 10 reps of dumbbell squats and straight leg kettlebell RDLs, single leg, like a Bulgarian split squats with a kettlebell, and then hip thrust. And I did 4 fast rounds of that for 10 reps. And that was it. And my booty is sore today. And I wasn't expecting that. So it's cool. Sometimes you just got to be like really efficient and use what you got. And I didn't have a lot of time to do my normal stuff, but that's the chapter we're in right now. So.
Right. So no sled yesterday. Some of my favorite pictures on your account
no sled, but I do love the sled.
You're pushing your sled on your road, like with your kids on it. It's great. I just love it.
Fantastic.
So it's like the sled is something that I feel like is something I wish all moms had because it's such a easy tool for everybody. I know everyone's like, oh my God, it must be so heavy, but like, it's not as heavy as you think it is, especially when you're used to pushing around a stroller with a toddler in it or the car seat thing. So like you get one that's like 40 pounds or something, which is totally equivalent to a stroller. But anyway, like it's kind of fun because I'll usually use it during the like last bit of the day where like everyone is cooped up and crazy. Like Kay just needs to get outside and do sprints before bed. I'm telling you, he's my 4-year-old and like I just have to like burn him out before bed. Otherwise he's just like going off the walls. So we'll just go out front, and we live on a cul-de-sac, which is really nice. It's pretty safe. And, Chance just sort of either hangs out on me or like on a blanket, and Cade chases the sled, races it, rides his bike around it, or sits right on in. And it's kind of a nice way to squeeze in a little extra movement and strength training when that is kind of a luxury right now.
There she is.
And yeah, and it's fun. Like, it's fun for them to participate. So
that is
so
sweet.
Cool.
I love that.
Chris is pulling up some pictures. He's putting them on the thing. So if you're listening to this, take a second to come over to the video if you have time, because Chris had some little snapshots. Or go follow her on Instagram. There, some really great inspirational stuff. But inspiration, yes, but strategy, and that is where you really shine, my friends.
All right. Brianna, I would love to learn a little bit more about your background, kind of what you're doing and how you fit that into being a coach, and a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Tell people.
Okay. My background, I guess I've been a lifelong athlete, and I grew up playing sports, did it through college, coached college. And during that time, I was also involved in the fitness industry in different capacities. Personal training, corporate wellness, again, collegiate athletics, strength and conditioning. And I narrowed my focus to strength and conditioning. And I am a strength and conditioning coach. I'm like a USA weightlifting coach, and just really love working with athletes. And I always have. It's just been, it's just sort of evolved. And it wasn't until I had my son Cade, who's now 4, that I realized, like, wow, there seems to not be a lot of information that's resonating with athletes and coaches like me regarding training through pregnancy and postpartum. It was more of like this glorified message, and not just a glorified message, but like glorified advice about like how invincible our bodies are, and our mindset is like, we were made to do this. And it's like, I understand the attractiveness of that message, and I totally bought into it, like 100% when I was pregnant. And because I just felt like, well, typical pre and postnatal advice, like of just like do yoga or something, like just wasn't what I wanted to do.
Keep your heart rate below 140.
Right. And, at that time we were seeing like this influx, I guess, of women wanting to like lift really heavy and train really hard through pregnancy because I can listen to my body and keep doing what I've always done. And my doctor said it's fine and blah, blah, blah. So, and my doctor did say it was fine. And I thought I was experienced enough in my training and in my education to know. And you don't know what you don't know, like, until you know, right? So, I guess it was like, it took getting really humbled by my delivery and like my mental expectations around that. And then my navigation of postpartum and my athleticism postpartum in order to say like, wow, I really need to shift my coaching career and messaging to better speak to women that are like me. And there's a lot of women like me. And I knew that if I wasn't doing it, and if I didn't share that, more women would just only hear what I had heard and only be told what I had told, which was really kind of misguided and not founded in not just evidence, but also like the bigger picture of what it means to really support women's health, performance, and mental health, like so many different considerations that really just were so neglected in my own experience. So I know that I went a little rogue with my qualifications or whatever
that was
we originally asked, but like awesome. I do that sometimes where I just blab and go. Obviously you know that, Beth.
I love your blabbing. So bring it on.
Yeah, and so I guess to circle back, like I've used my background in kinesiology, I have my master's degree in coaching, and I've been able to sort of connect the dots on a personal level to a professional level, and try to fill a hole, I guess, in the fitness industry for athletes like myself, and use my background and my personal experience to connect those dots.
Yeah. And so again, for those of you listening, Brianna is not just a weekend trained coach. Gosh, I cannot stand those programs that are like, hey, sell this
I
thing and
know.
get trained in a weekend to be a coach. And, there are a few people who have other qualifications and then go do a program like that. And maybe that helps. That's great. But there is also this thing that is actually a real coach that is a master's degree coach, kinesiology degree, all these things, all these certifications. This is years. I mean, I think you did this in a post recently. Like if you added up all your years of training, it'd be older than you, right?
Yeah, I think so. And it's funny, I'm still paying my student loans. Like, I don't know when that's going to stop happening, but and then we are just in continual pursuit of education, right? There's just so many people to learn from. Like, I have no desire to go get any further, master's degrees or doctorates. No, I'm totally done with that. But if I could go and just keep learning and mentoring under different people, that's where I want to keep pursuing, I guess, more education in this. But it's always had my heart. I have been headed down this path since I was 17 years old. And, it's just every year has redirected and shifted and kind of led me to exactly where I am now, which feels pretty good. And we'll see where life takes it,
So as you were getting education, you were doing it yourself, you were living it, you're experiencing it.
Yeah.
And then as you kind of were faced with your own life and you started to maybe change your focus a little bit to some of the postpartum stuff, working with athletes that were going through the same thing, how was that shift? What changed for you?
Right. I guess it was just what a humbling experience motherhood was. I had all of these expectations and confidence, thinking I was made for this. I am strong and healthy enough to have a natural birth. And, why would I want drugs? Why would I, I will never have a C-section, that kind of thing, thinking it's almost like this elitist health attitude. And it feels terrible to say that, honestly, because I understand the heart of Bree 5 years ago. But I didn't take into consideration the bigger picture of what I was sort of setting myself up for in terms of well, what happens if I don't get my way? Which motherhood, you don't get your way ever. But I didn't know that, right? I didn't know that at the time.
Right.
And then postpartum, it was, and then also taking not just birth, but my fitness, I was sort of had this mentality and was continually told well, the healthier you are and the fitter you are through pregnancy, the easier it's going to be for you to bounce back. And the better off you're just going to be no matter what. And so when I was postpartum and I was man, what's up with my stomach?
Right.
what's going on? Why do I not feel normal? I thought all of that exercise was setting me up to have a really I don't know, just to feel really strong. And I know originally it was sort of an aesthetic thing that I was looking at my abdomen and I was it's not so much about body fat. It's just, the contour of it was awkward. And I knew enough, being somebody who is neurotic and informed about my body, that okay, maybe there's something else to this. And that led me down the Google rabbit hole of researching. And so then I obviously, everybody, seemed to self-diagnose myself with diastasis, recti, and then I was OMG, what is this? And why did no one tell me about this? And why did I not know as a coach? Why didn't I know as an athlete? Why didn't I know as when I was surrounded by this fit pregnancy and fit postpartum body back messaging, why wasn't that part of the conversation too, if this seems to be a prevalent thing? And a super long story short, thousands of dollars and so many hours spent with different practitioners trying to troubleshoot my body, I finally got connected to Julie Weeb, and she really helped. She helped me rehab, and then she helped me learn as a coach.
Yeah, she's a great physical
mentor under her. Yeah. And so it was a good learning opportunity going through it myself and learning, I feel I learn best by doing, and I'm the best guinea pig for this. And so I was able to rehab my diastasis, and it took a long time, but I did it after my first, and it was pretty significant. It was, for like fellow nerds out there, it was 8 centimeters separated, and that was at a year and a half postpartum. So who knows what it was like when I was, within my first 6 months postpartum from Cade. And I was able to rehab. And then I just really knew that I had been coaching women at that point in my career, but I knew like I really needed to step up what I was putting out there online, because I was sharing so much of my own stuff that then people were like asking me questions, and I wanted to be able to give them not just my opinion, but I wanted to give them like evidence, and I wanted to give them like trustworthy resources and referrals. And so that's when I really like got serious about learning more, and from anybody I could, and from anything that I could. And that has led to building a business serving this particular audience, and coaches and athletes. And and then it led into a second pregnancy, which was like a miracle baby for me, and a second postpartum journey that I'm in right now at 8 months postpartum, and kind of going through the same thing again, but just totally different this time because of a new approach mentally and a new approach physically in my training.
Yeah. So I've been following you since you started rehabbing your core, and I don't even remember how I started following you, but it was so refreshing to follow a fellow professional who was being so open and candid about the journey. Because when I went through that journey, now almost 7 years ago, I wasn't on Instagram, and I was at that time just trying to assimilate all this, and it was still early, and there was so little out there. And I wish more professionals would do what you're doing, but the way you do it. There are professionals like, hey, here's my belly, and hey, here's how you check, and let's just do some squeezes, and let's just stand straight. And there's so much more to it than that.
Right.
And you're so, you really are very eloquent in how you phrase things, and very bold. And, and so then when you found out you were pregnant the second time, and you really let people in, you really let people into your thought process, and you were so raw about, oh my gosh, this is not what I planned, and what do I do, and what do I do about my core? I've just, you've restored function, and you rehabbed your diastases, but now is that all going to blow up in your face? And those are the questions we get all the time. You know this. Moms are scared. Once they've done the work, they don't want to undo the work.
Right.
And that's why, I mean, along with other reasons, like the decision to have another baby was so much more than just like a family dynamic thing, and so much more than, I call him my miracle baby, not because of fertility reasons, but because of like what it mentally and physically did to me becoming a mom. Like, it's just, I felt like my whole world got turned upside down, and it was so hard to adjust to. And like, I just felt like when I finally had like rehabbed, and I knew though, like Cade was getting older, and I just knew our family wasn't complete. And I had done a lot of work to try to get myself mentally and physically healthy and ready enough to even consider having another baby. And so, we got pregnant with Chance, and it was like, I am taking this risk of like not knowing what this is going to be. I don't know what it's going to do to my body. I don't know I don't know how I'm going to feel like as a mom of two. I don't know, but I think the risk is worth the chance. And his name is Chance. So that was like my little like mantra, I guess, was like, everyone has their own experiences within motherhood. And for me, like, it was a big deal to have another baby, and to just not know, like, just to go into it with so many uncertainties that might not be like the normal uncertainties, I guess, that a lot of people take into consideration. Because I feel like, it looks like the decision to have more children is really an easy one for a lot of people. And like, where it's like, well, I want to have a big family, or I definitely want to have like 2 or 3 kids, like, and back to back or whatever. And it doesn't seem like that's a big deal. But for me, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know how people are doing this. Like, how are they doing it? And now that I am actually doing it with 2 kids, I'm like, I don't really know how I'm doing it, but like, we just kind of are. Right. And, sitting in cars outside of hair salons doing it. Right.
Recording podcasts that are going to change the world.
Yeah. So that's how we're doing it. If anyone's curious.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want to jump back to something that you touched on a little bit, and that's about kind of the message that moms get now and how off it is, and kind of your experience and kind of what you do about that now. And what do you say to a mom that's about to become a mom, or for the first time or second time or whatever?
Well, and before you answer that, so I know like, what you said, just to feed into it a bit more about how you went into your first pregnancy, you know, I'm designed for this and I could do this and I'm made for this. And if I exercise, I will have a better recovery. And I know you and I both know that it is about how you exercise, and there, you know, going back to that strategies. And you and I both are big on teaching the right strategies and not just assuming, but most moms don't know that. And so people are like, well, as long as they're exercising, it's better. Not if the exercise makes things worse. And I think that on my end, that's a big part of the messaging, and then how do we convey it? But yes, answer Chris's question. I just had to put that little.
Yeah. Well, gosh. Okay. So my messaging, I guess I work with primarily athletes, but again, it's that top down approach. And I guess I just think that, talking about, when I coach, I try to speak not just about pregnancy and postpartum, but about this all encompassing like timeline of a woman's life. Like it's pregnant. If I am going to work with women and I'm going to try to support them through this chapter, like pregnancy and postpartum are a consideration. I can't get around that. So I better know how to coach that. And I have to talk about not just how they're training through their pregnancy, but how they feel and what they do now and how that might matter later, and maybe what they did before and how that might matter now that they're pregnant or now that they're postpartum, and what that means for them when they are 40 or when they are 60, and that there's a lot of hope and there's a lot of help, and whether it's postpartum depression, anxiety, or it is incontinence or whatever it may be, just know like there's resources and there's help, and things that go unsaid and are maybe taboo or very filtered, both in words and images online. Like, let's just be a little bit more transparent and talk about and share things that, I don't know, that don't always get shared. So I do try to have like more of like a really inclusive message so that, you know, people don't feel really isolated in their choices.
Right. Yeah. And I like what you've said. And I want you to elaborate on this, that the message of listening to your body is not enough.
Right. Not even close to being enough. And especially for athletes, because athletes are actually told to not listen to their body, right? Like we're like designed, like I can feel like I can go back to being 7 years old and like being told like, push through it, right? Like that's a 7-year-old. And like, we can see that with, you know, our own kids, and like the messaging around like, well, you know, you fall down at soccer, like you got to get up and keep moving. Like, it's okay. Unless you're seriously hurt, like you got to build this innate resilience. And I love sports, and I have so much of my heart is attached to like the development of athletes. But when now you're entering a totally new and uncharted territory of pregnancy and postpartum fitness and athleticism, like listening to your body can potentially backfire. And people get really defensive when I say that, because it's like, well, no, you just like, I know how to listen to my body, blah, blah, blah. But we don't always, like, no one is telling us what to listen for. And beyond listening to our body in the present, it's like being able to listen to our body for the future of our needs, which is really hard to do, because something might feel totally fine. And, you know, we are physically able to do it, and, you know, mentally and emotionally, everything, like our training feels good, but is that setting us up for 6 months from now or 6 years from now? Like that's where I try to always come back to, in the listening to your body thing. Cause maybe you're listening to your body now, but you're not listening to what it's going to need later.
Right.
Yeah. And I have said that. I always try to qualify it with, okay, what are you listening for? But
Right.
still, I love that you laid that challenge down. It helped me take some of my cueing to the next level and making sure I'm not just throwing that out there. Because like you said, not everybody knows what that means or even what they should be feeling for. And I think we as instructors and trainers can take for granted all this body connection that we have. Our psychosomatic connections are higher. And we just assume everybody has that. And they don't. And that doesn't mean they're less than. It just means that, well, it could mean 1,000 things. So we can't just be content to just say, oh, just tune in. And we have to tell them what they're exactly looking for. And also we have to trust and learn our own physiology in the sense that when I was first pregnant with my daughter, first pregnancy, I felt great the whole time. No leaking, no problems. I looked for the little dome because I was taught to look for the doming and just to brace my abs with my hands. Right. And so I knew I had some diastases and I just thought that was normal. But I felt fine. I felt strong. I was teaching spin classes. I was teaching step classes. I was doing jumping jacks. I was doing all the things and I felt fine. And I even finished the pregnancy feeling fine, but still had a little incontinence and still had some of those issues and still had a wide diastases, but I was told that was normal. So I wasn't listening, looking for that. I was tuning into my body and my body felt fine. So,
right. And I felt fine doing lifting really heavy through my pregnancy. I felt fine doing box jumps and I felt fine doing all those things when I was pregnant. And while some people were horrified by that, that was a really normal in my circle and in the culture that I was being exposed to. And so I was listening to my body and it's just sort of like a missing piece because we don't know how to self-regulate for the current chapter that we're in a lot of times. And and I will put myself on blast for that because of all people who should have known better to honor this unique chapter in my athleticism, it should have been me. I had the experience and I had the education and I didn't know. So I think that's where a lot of women kind of fall into that and just sort of feel like we're almost exempt from certain considerations.
Well, and we can also get really gung-ho about proving everybody wrong. And we are strong. And we can do it. And we're not going to let this pregnancy stop us. This is a healthy state, normal way of being. We are going to do all the things. As long as we did them for 6 months prior to pregnancy, we can do them now. I remember dispensing that advice. As long as you've done it for 6 months, you can keep doing it. Well, maybe not.
Totally.
So coaches that are working with moms and pregnant moms, what should they be doing differently to address that? I mean,
she could write a book.
Oh yeah.
They should be taking her course. That is what they should be doing, first of all.
Oh gosh. I think the biggest thing is knowing your audience, really knowing who you're speaking to and knowing what their mindset and approach is, because their mindset will absolutely dictate their training. And when you can give them mental considerations of well, you of course can do this movement, but should you? And what is the risk reward? What is the benefit of doing this? What is the cost of doing this? And are you setting yourself up or are you setting yourself back? So that way they have the ability to make really informed decisions about their training. I won't tell them stop doing this unless they're paying me and asking me directly. But overall, I will, it's more of challenging their beliefs around what their athleticism means during this particular time. Because I will be the number one cheerleader for the mom making a return to the CrossFit Games at a year postpartum. I will. And I've stood by that woman and I will support that, but I've also supported her through a whole pregnancy and a whole rehab and a whole build, and know that she is a tiny, tiny, tiny percent of the population. And if somebody like her has certain guidelines and progression, well then guess what? every woman needs the same thing if they're pursuing fitness and athleticism and healing in their postpartum demands and fitness as moms. So, really,
so you're saying
back
it's
to that
not
top down
one
message.
size fits all? It's not.
Weird, right? Yeah.
I know.
Super weird.
So are we also saying that women's bodies are all different? Yes.
What?
Yeah.
I mean, there's the basic things that are the same, but even among that sameness, there's differences.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
one of the reasons I love following you is when you'll post things about the athletes that you've trained and these awesome videos of them doing these really powerful motions. And then there's the people that are new to following you and they're all like freaking out. And I'm just like, hee, here she comes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because I do think like, there's just, I don't know. It's a really beautiful thing to me because if I can teach somebody to get to a point where they can like deadlift hundreds and hundreds of pounds and peak and do it at the time in their life and performance when they need to the most, then I can also teach a mom to deadlift her stroller and put it in the back of her SUV. And like both deserve those tools and both deserve that like progression and development because it fits in like whatever their needs analysis is, right? Like if we want to go back to being like nerds, what is this woman's particular needs analysis? Well, this one might be to go to the CrossFit Games, but this one might just be to pick up her stroller and not throw her back out. So like let's get everybody on board working toward whatever it is they want to do, and let me help that person in front of me do that. And I think that's something that all coaches can do and should do is be able to like reach, we can set out our message and the ears and eyes that resonate with it, like great. But then, when it comes to the ones that are like really reaching out to us individually, like let's help them do what they need to do. And that's, I think, what coaches should be doing.
You gave me chills. Ugh. It was so good. So good.
So you've put together courses around this stuff, some e-courses and things like that. Can you talk about that stuff?
Yeah, sure. It's funny because like, gosh, I just never thought like this would like tech or anything online was ever in my realm of possibilities ever.
Yeah, me neither. Right? Me neither. And if somebody had told me, I would have run.
Right. I'm like, I don't want to own my business. That sounds terrible. But here we are. So.
I know.
Okay. So yeah, what happened was I was getting so many emails after sharing what I had been through as an athlete. And this was literally just sharing on Facebook at the time and a little bit on Instagram. And so I was sharing my journey, and then I was like connecting it to my coaching and showing like what I was doing in class and showing like what I was doing to heal and progress. And then I just ended up getting so many different emails from people that were like, oh my gosh, like me too. And, and help me. And what do I do? And can you coach me? And can you program? So I was like programming and doing like all this stuff that like literally I had no time for, like as a mom and whatnot, even when I just had Cade. And so I was trying to figure out a way, like, and no one wants to read an FAQ page, right? So I knew that I needed to just like consolidate information and save myself time. And then like own that, like, hey, like I am putting in the work, like this is something I could sell and I should sell and because I can't respond to emails every day. Right. And so like, it came from this place of being like, I don't want to do this, but I should absolutely do this. And so I made an online course for athletes that's just like, it's everything I wish I would have known and would have been told to even consider. And then, and some application components. And like, that was great. And it still is. It's still really good. Like if you don't know anything, at least know this before you train. If you're an athlete training through your pregnancy or training postpartum, here's the basics, like in an hour and a half. Right. And then that turned into, getting more feedback on that. And then more coaches were reaching out. And then more, in my community, a lot of athletes, moms are also coaches at their given gym or want to be coaches or whatever. Like it's sort of it's an interesting community within the fitness industry where it's both personal and professional interest.
Yeah,
and so
that's true.
And so then I was getting a lot of those emails, and like, I don't know, there were so many changes of direction within this effort, but it ended up being me pursuing making a coach's course, because I knew if I could reach out to the coaches that were in these gyms and advising women, then that would reach more people ultimately. And I knew that I could have a little bit greater of an impact if I could at least get like this info to them. Well, then that ended up turning into like a 45-hour online course, and like getting so many different experts, because then I was like, well, I can't speak on this. So now I need to bring in an expert, and I can't speak on that. So now I need to bring in an expert. And it just sort of like, my planning for it was, it's like comical to think back on like what I thought it was going to be, and then what it actually turned into. And I'm really proud of it. It's like it's my baby, but it has been awesome, because now there's like 200 coaches all over the world that are in their gyms and or starting businesses for moms, and they know how to work with athletes, and they know like they can work with a CrossFitter or a powerlifter or a triathlete, that they can also work with a mom who's just playing at the park with her kid and doesn't want to pee when her kid runs away or whatever, you know, like, like, so like such a great crossover. And I'm really happy that it exists. And it's been a great tool, I think, to be able to use and say, like, if this is something you want to consider, this should not be your only form of education, but it should definitely complement your efforts. Yeah, for wanting to work with women, for wanting to work with this population, for like learning how to take theories and put it into play. And not just put it into play with like a body weight squat, but put it into play with like a clean and jerk, or put it into play with like someone swinging a kettlebell around, you know. And I brought like Haley Shevner in for that, because I can't speak on kettlebells, so I might as well bring in my experts, right? So
she's great.
So it was just really cool to see how it evolved. And I launched it when I was like 8 months pregnant, and that was crazy. Like, Beth, no one tells me about like what was going to happen with a launch. Like, I didn't know it was, I didn't know it was such a thing. And now I know.
Super easy and fun and not stressful at all, right?
Oh my gosh. And then I moved like literally the next day, and it was just so bad. And then Cade broke his arm that same day. I was like, okay, forget that project I just worked on for a year. So fine.
Wow. I know it was like watching a tornado, but you handled it well. And again, you were open with people, and you're like, okay, I'm doing life here. And you know, entrepreneurism is rough, but rewarding. And
Brianna, we talked about your Instagram, but if people want to know more about these courses or more about you, where can they find you and information about this stuff?
Yeah. So, my coach course is pregnancy and postpartum athleticism.
Okay.
And, it's pregnancyandpostpartumathleticism.com, and also briannabattles.com. So either of those websites. Brianna Battles is more of my all-encompassing one, and then the courses are on pregnancyandpostpartumathleticism.com. I have my athlete course there, which is called the Pregnant and Postpartum Athlete, and the coach one is, again, pregnancy and postpartum athleticism.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And you have some awesome hashtags. I just need you to share some of those before we wrap up.
Yeah.
I think the one that has turned into like a overall mantra for everything, literally everything that I do, from deciding to have a baby to getting to being pregnant and postpartum, and being out there and trying to create and share and be like really unapologetic about it, I guess, is practice brave. And that's really like, it's what's on my necklace here. And so I hashtag that a lot, I guess, because it just sort of complements a lot of things that I'm involved with and doing and care about. Pregnancy and postpartum athleticism is something that started out just with like to promote my course, because that's the name of it. But it's also turned into like a mini movement where it's not just like fit mommy or whatever, and like, you know, body back or whatever. It's more of like, I don't know, like an all way to be really inclusive for this chapter. And what other hashtags do I use? Oh, I've done a battles body image, that's a hashtag, series where I've tried to share like, I guess, really vulnerable images and sentiments surrounding navigating how a body changes during pregnancy and the changes to it postpartum. Especially like there's a huge body positive movement, and like there's so many people that are doing way cooler things with that than I am. I think my approach was like, there's athletes that have a really hard time seeing their body change because they're working for a certain aesthetic. They're working for a certain, like, I don't know, presentation in a lot of different ways. And it's part of our identity. So then to have your identity physically changed is like, oh, like it's brutal. And so I try to be really
don't recognize
like
yourself.
Right. And so I try to be really like, I try to own that like there are bodies that look different than mine, of course. And it's always sometimes hard to like share like, well, I'm struggling with my body, and someone else is like, oh, please. And someone else is like, oh, I would, like I would hate to look like you, or I would love to look like you. Right. Like that's kind of this, like when you get into the body positive world, some of the things that come up. But what I try to do is just kind of share like, this is my story. This is my body. This is my experience. And this is my approach. Like I will never be who I was at 22, but at turning 32 next week, can I be okay as my body evolves?
Yes. Yeah. And you do
through sports, through motherhood, through whatever, like there's going to be continual changes to my body. And so I've tried to really hone in on that part of this message.
And you do such a good job of it. I think some people are just spoiling for a fight sometimes, and you handle things so well because you really put yourself out there, and I think it invites a lot of drama sometimes. Not that you're looking for drama. I don't get that vibe from you at all. No. But there's just some people like, they just want to jump on that because they're dealing with their own issues. And it is staggering the wide range of comments that you get sometimes. And I just want to applaud you for your work that you're doing. You're doing a great job. And I'm so glad you could join us. We're going to wrap up. It's been an honor to have you on the show. And we need to have you back to talk more about, I really want to talk more with you about C-sections and making that choice because, oh my gosh, you have such a great story around that.
Oh, thank you so much. I would love to share about that.
Be cool. Yes. Well, Brianna, thank you for spending time with us. We will put all your information in the podcast info. So if you're listening to this, you want to check it out.
Great.
And we'll connect again. Love to have you on again. So
yes, please.
This has been really fantastic. So thank you for that.
Yes. Have a great day.
Thank you guys so much for having me on.
Of course. All right. Thank you.
Bye, friends.
Bye.
Oh my Lanta, thanks for listening. I really hope you join our community over at Fit2B.com where you can gain access to all our exercise videos and e-courses. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Fit2B, on Instagram at Fit2B Studio, and of course on Facebook via Fit2B Tennessee Fitness. See you later, alligator.